This video is sponsored by me and Learn Light and Sound. We have courses on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Link down below. Full disclosure, Tascam sent the FR-AV2 to me on loan to make this video review. They have not paid me. They will get this back as soon as this review is done, so I send it back to them. And they have not reviewed this video prior to posting, so all the opinions shared here are my own. Now, let's go ahead and run through the pros and cons. First, actually, before we do that, this is all being recorded with the FR-AV2, and I am using a Sennheiser MKH50 microphone boomed just out of the frame right here. So that's exactly what you're hearing through this video. First, pros. It has 2 XLR and combination quarter-inch inputs, and they can take in microphones or line-level signals. So if you wanted to record a mixing board, you could also do that, but of course, you can record microphones. It does provide up to 48 volts of phantom power, and it supplies 60 dB of gain, so you should be able to drive most microphones, including a Shure SM7B. Here's a sample of that. All right, acid test. As far as microphones go, Shure SM7B, probably one of the most gain-hungry microphones on the market. At least one of the most common microphones out there that requires a lot of gain. We have the input gain on the recorder set to plus 51 dB, and we are recording in 32-bit float mode. In post, I'm going to normalize it to minus 23 LUFS, standard loudness level for television. Now, this also has a 3.5 millimeter input, so if you want to bring in a lavalier microphone, for example, you could do that as well. One note, it does, when you use that 3.5 millimeter input as a microphone, I believe you can only use that by disabling one of the XLR inputs. So it's not a 3-input recorder, so just make sure you keep that in mind. It records 24-bit linear or 32-bit float up to 192 kilohertz sample rates. So it's got you pretty well covered there. 32-bit float. If you're not familiar with that, I put a link down below on 32-bit float, what it does, what it's good for. This recorder does it. That's fantastic. So I'm not going to go into great detail there. We've covered that a lot, but it is a potentially helpful feature for some users. In terms of the cleanliness of the preamplifiers, what I mean by that, how much self-noise the preamplifiers or the entire recorder signal chain itself produces, we found this came in at minus 68 dB RMS max with a 150 ohm resistor. If you don't understand what any of this means, stick with me. I'm telling the story, and I will sum it up in just a second. 150 ohm resistor across pins 2 and 3, the 32-bit float mode, input level set to 0, and then in post I boosted it 60 dB, so 60 dB of digital gain. And that's where we got the minus 68 dB RMS max. Now, what that means in practical terms is you're not going to be fighting with a bunch of noise from this recorder, adding hiss or other things like that. To put it in context, its closest competitor from my mind is the Zoom F3 recorder. And we did the exact same test with that, and that came out to minus 58 dB RMS max. In other words, the Tascam has cleaner preamps, at least according to that particular measurement, than the Zoom F3 does. So the Tascam has fantastic preamplifiers that sound very good to my ear. It can also act as a USB audio interface. It has a USB-C port on the side. And while you're using it as a USB audio interface with your computer or phone or whatever, you can also record on the Tascam recorder itself. So there are no kind of limitations there. And at least on macOS, the recorder can stream 32-bit float or 24-bit linear, whichever you need. The FR-AV2 records to micro SD, SDHC, and SDXC cards, class 10 or higher. So you can buy some of the more recent, much larger capacity cards. You could record on this for weeks on a single card if you're going to go that way. What's unique about the FR-AV2, it also has some processors. It has a limiter, it has a compressor, equalizer, noise gate. This is something that you don't find on a lot of other recorders in this kind of class. So those are really nice features. Here's a sample of each of those. All right, want to test the limiter here. Check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How did it do? Did it distort? Let's see in the sample. Here's the sample with the compressor. I'm going to go ahead and talk normally for just a moment here, and then I might get a little loud, ha 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 ha, just to see what the compressor does with that. And it's not necessarily going to save us from clipping, but it should even things out a little bit. So let's see what we get here. Now we are talking with the interview EQ setting. So the EQ has several settings. Interview is one of them, and this is what the interview setting sounds like. I'm not really sure what these presets do, but here's one. You can go ahead and try these out. Maybe they'll be useful. All right, here's the manual EQ mode, and in this case I have done a cut at 1.5 kilohertz, a cut of 4 decibels, and that is often a place in my voice with a lot of energy in that particular space, or that particular frequency range, and so it should sound a little bit different. So here it is with the manual EQ setting. Okay, here we are now with the noise gate setting. There's a fan over here in the light that shoots across here, reflects off of this board. That's my key light. Big fan, lots of noise. Also footsteps upstairs right now. So maybe that's actually good. So this is the high setting on the noise gate. Let's modify that setting a little bit. Let's back off just a little bit. Here is the mid setting on the noise gate. This is the mid setting. Same fan. This is the low setting on the noise gate. Same fan running over here. Using a good directional mic as well, so you may not hear a ton of that, but... And there we are with the noise gate turned off. The FR-AV2 also has an inbuilt timecode generator, a proper temperature compensator crystal oscillator. It also has input and output ports for the timecodes, separate ports. This is fantastic for a recorder of this size. I'm going to talk about this more in context of the Zoom F3. This is superior to the Zoom F3 when it comes to most timecode workflows. So if timecode is very important to your workflow, for me, the Tascam FR-AV2 is a much better choice than the Zoom F3. In addition to that, we tested the timecode clock here. We did a jam sync with a Tentacle Sync E timecode generator, separated them, ran them for 8 hours, came back, and the frames were exactly in sync. There was nothing out of sync there, so you're going to be just fine in terms of accuracy. Now, if you buy the add-on Bluetooth adapter, the AKBT2, you can control the recorder via an iOS or Android app, and at the same time, you can stream audio for monitoring from the recorder to Bluetooth headphones or a Bluetooth speaker if you wanted to do that. So this is actually a step forward. I have not seen any other recorder that can do that. And so that's pretty innovative. Nice job, Tascam. In addition to that, the sound quality is actually quite good. You can choose 3 different quality levels, and if you're operating reasonably close to the recorder itself with your headphones, you can get very high quality audio. Now, to temper all that, it is Bluetooth, so there is some latency. So what that means in practical terms, if you're wearing headphones and you're in the space where the recording is taking place, you're going to hear you're going to hear in just in the ambient space, the sound, let's say, for example, dialogue, someone talking, and then there's going to be a delay before you hear it in your headphones. So you need to be aware of that. This is largely a Bluetooth issue or a digital device issue. So just keep that in mind. We did several tests with RF generating devices near the recorder, so wireless transmitters and phones, and we were not able to pick up any sort of RF interference, both with a UHF system or with the consumer 2.4 gigahertz systems or with a mobile phone. So the Tascam FR-AV2 appears to be pretty nicely radio frequency shielded, so you're not going to get interference from those electronic devices. The recorder does have a mid-side stereo decoder and also monitoring function, so if you're into mid-side recording out in the field, this can do that for you as well. In terms of power, there are a couple of different options. Number one, 3 AA batteries. We put 3 Eneloop AA batteries, nickel metal hydride rechargeables. We turned it on recording one channel with phantom power turned on at 24-bit, and we got 4 hours and 28 minutes of power time. Respectable. You can also power this via the USB-C port, so if you have a USB battery bank and you want to power it via that, you can do that as well. The FR-AV2 comes with a 1-year warranty, and it is priced at $399 USD at the time of this review. Also, the add-on Bluetooth module runs $69 US, and I would say that's it's it's a pretty nice add-on. It's worth the additional cost there. Now, no product is perfect. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the cons here. First of all, the Bluetooth module is not included, so you do have an additional price. On top of that, I don't understand exactly why these Japanese manufacturers are doing that. Zoom does it too. I don't entirely understand it, but that is the reality. There is some audio latency, as I mentioned, when you're monitoring with Bluetooth headphones and streaming via Bluetooth. So just keep that in mind. And then finally, the overall build is pretty good. I don't want to overstate this. It is, however, 100% plastic. The plastic seems to be reasonably high quality, and there is a metal 1/4-20 tap on the bottom. So it does have some little tabs here on the front, so if you do place it face down, it's not likely that the screen will get scratched if it's a flat surface that you're placing it on. But overall, just keep in mind that it is a plastic body. Okay, let's talk about this in context of the Zoom F3. Probably the most popular recorder in this class right now amongst those that are recording dialogue and possibly also ambiance or sound effects. So let's compare this kind of feature by feature and just see which one comes out where. First of all, sound quality, I would say it's pretty much the same on both of them. I would say the Tascam, obviously, in our one test there, had cleaner preamplifiers that produced less self-noise. However, both of them sound fantastic, and as far as recording dialogue, I find both of them to be very capable. And to me, it's not an issue. You're not going to pick up a bunch of hiss because of the recorder. You're going to pick up, if you are going to pick up hiss, it's because you have hiss in your room or your microphone is a lower quality microphone that's generating that self-noise. So it's not the recorder. So toss up between the Tascam FR-AV2 and the Zoom F3. Next, form factor. This also is a toss up. The Tascam is definitely a different form factor. I think it's a little bit larger. It also, from my point of view, is a better form factor. I appreciate the fact that it has a much larger screen and the screen is color, so it's very easy to work with. I find, we'll come to the screen in just a minute, but in any case, I do like the form factor. I think it's easier to mount it on a camera rig if that's what you're trying to do than the Zoom F3. The Zoom F3 works fine if you're using a friction arm or something like that, but if you're trying to mount it flush to something on your camera rig, it's not well set up to do that. So that's where I prefer the Tascam. Build materials, I would say the Zoom F3 wins. It does have more metal on its body so that if you dropped it, it's more likely to hit one of those metal parts and survive that fall. The app control and monitoring, I think this is a clear win for the Tascam. So in addition to a 3.5mm headphone jack on the unit itself, there is also the ability to stream Bluetooth sound and control the entire recorder with an app. And the app is very capable, allows you to do plenty of things, including adding metadata to the files on the recorder itself. So I will say this, though, you do need to get the AK-BT2 adapter, not the AK-BT1. There are two different adapters now. The AK-BT1 was originally made, I believe, when they released the Tascam DR10L Pro. That one will not allow you to stream wirelessly. This is an all-new adapter that enables that wireless streaming as well. AA battery power time. The win goes to the Zoom F3. It can power for about an hour and a half longer than the Tascam under the same circumstances with the same types of batteries. Again, as I mentioned, they can both be powered via USB-C as well. So if you're going to need longer record times and you can power via USB-C, then that should be fine either way. For timecode, the win clearly goes to the Tascam. It's able to integrate with so many more timecode workflows than the Zoom F3. The Zoom F3, you have one option, and that is using the Atomos UltraSync Blue or the Atom X module. So you're kind of tied into that with the Zoom F3 if you need to do timecode. On the Tascam, with those physical 3.5mm timecode in and out ports, you can jam sync with any timecode generator. So anything from Deity, anything from Tentacle Sync, anything from Denicky, anything from any other company that makes timecode generators, you can sync with it with the Tascam. As I mentioned before, the screen, the win for me goes to the Tascam. However, it's a little more nuanced than that. The color screen is larger, it's easier to read, it has the right amount of information on it. Tascam has done a nice job there. It does use more power because it is a bigger screen and it's color. So that's why you probably get less power time on the Tascam versus the Zoom. And I would say that if you're outside in direct sunlight, it's going to be easier to see that Zoom screen, that kind of old school LCD screen, than it is going to be to see this full color screen. So if you're outside all the time, probably the Zoom has a better screen for those circumstances. if you are working in a kind of mixed environments, both indoors and outdoors, and you can cup your hand over the screen when you need to make a change when you're in direct sunlight outdoors, then I think the Tascam will be fine. Ergonomics. This is subjective to me. My subjective opinion is I prefer the Tascam. It has more buttons. They're bigger. It's better laid out. The screen is larger. To me, the way you set the settings makes more sense. The menu, to me, was a little bit clearer and easier to navigate. That's personal, but that's my particular take on that. Inputs. I would say the win goes for the Tascam because not only do you have two XLR inputs, they're combination inputs. So if you're going to record sound from a soundboard, for example, if you're a wedding videographer and you need to get a feed from the DJ's board, you have more options in terms of cables. You could use either XLR for inputs or you could use 1/4 inch. And a lot of times they'll maybe just have 1/4 inch. So it can be a little tricky with something like a Zoom F3 that only has XLR inputs. In addition, the Tascam has that 3.5 millimeter input. Not that you'll need it a lot, but it's there if you need it. Bluetooth add-on modules, they both have them. And the Tascam's is more expensive, but it's also more capable. So I guess that's a bit of a toss-up. I don't know if there's a clear winner there. And then finally, there is processing on the Tascam that is not on the Zoom F3. What I mean by that specifically, compressor, limiter, noise gate, EQ, none of that on the Zoom F3. So if you need that on the Tascam, that's probably going to make the Tascam a little bit better if you're doing any sort of live streaming as an audio interface into your computer. So you've got that as well. There is, of course, a camera output on this. So if you want to feed audio to your camera, you can do that as well. All right, overall, if I could only choose one, and let me make this clear. I do not own the Tascam. I own the Zoom F3. I purchased it with my own money. But if I were shopping today and I could only buy one, I would choose the Tascam over the Zoom for my particular workflow, just because of all those things that I just mentioned here. That's subjective, I realize that, and I want you to understand that too. There is no such thing as a definitively, objectively better recorder for all circumstances and all people and all types of projects. So keep that in mind. I'm not saying this is the ultimate recorder, you should never buy anything else. It's not that at all. If you have a Zoom F3, you're getting good results, you're happy with it, great. Keep using it. Get out there, keep making great sound. Don't sweat it. Just keep making good content. If you're in the market today and your priorities are anything like mine, I mostly record dialogue audio, mostly in interview types of situations. My preference is clearly for the Tascam. So I hope that's helpful for you. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave those down below. Get out there and make some great sound, and we'll talk to you again next time.